Hi friends! Today we're going to listen to 3 amazing chapters from the book of Matthew that teach us all about Jesus' love, kindness, and the way he wants us to treat one another. In Matthew 18, Jesus shows how precious children are to him and reminds us to forgive from the heart. In Matthew 19, we learn how much he cares about families and how he welcomes every child with open arms. And in Matthew 20, Jesus teaches us about God's generosity and how being a helper is more important than being first. So find a comfy spot, open your ears, and get ready to hear stories that help us grow closer to Jesus every day. Let's begin our adventure through Matthew 18, 19, and 20. The disciples came to Jesus and asked who was the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. Jesus called a little child over and placed the child among them. He told them that unless they changed and became humble like children, they wouldn't even enter the kingdom, let alone be considered great. Whoever becomes humble like a child, he said, is the greatest. And anyone who welcomes someone with childlike faith is welcoming him. Then Jesus warned them that anyone who causes a believer, especially someone young or vulnerable, to stumble would be better off with a heavy stone tied around their neck and thrown into the sea. He said the world is full of things that lead people into sin, but those who cause others to fall are responsible for the harm they do. He used strong imagery, saying that if your hand, foot, or eye leads you into sin, it's better to lose it than to let it drag your whole life into destruction. He wasn't telling them to harm themselves. He was showing how seriously they should treat anything that pulls them away from God. Jesus told them not to look down on any of his little ones, because their angels always see the face of his Father in heaven. He said the Son of Man came to save those who were lost. Then he gave them a picture. If a shepherd has 100 sheep and one wanders off, he leaves the 99 to search for the one that's missing. And when he finds it, he rejoices more over that one than over the 99 that never left. In the same way, God doesn't want even one person to be lost. Jesus then explained how to handle conflict. If someone wrongs you, go to them privately and talk it out. If they listen, the relationship is restored. If they refuse, bring 1 or 2 others to help confirm what's happening. If they still won't listen, bring it before the community. And if they still refuse to make things right, treat them as someone outside the community, not with hatred, but with the understanding that they're choosing to step away from unity. Jesus said that whatever his followers bind or release on earth will be recognized in heaven, and that when even 2 or 3 gather in his name, he is present with them. Peter then came to Jesus and asked how many times he should forgive someone who keeps doing wrong, maybe 7 times? Jesus told him not 7, but 70 times 7, meaning forgiveness shouldn't be counted or limited. To explain this, Jesus told a story. A king wanted to settle accounts with his servants. One servant owed him an impossible amount, more than he could ever repay. When the servant begged for mercy, the king felt compassion and forgave the entire debt. But that same servant went out and found someone who owed him a small amount. Instead of showing mercy, he grabbed the man, demanded payment, and had him thrown into prison when he couldn't pay. Other servants saw this and were deeply upset, so they told the king what happened. The king called the first servant back, reminded him of the mercy he had received, and asked why he couldn't show the same kindness. In anger, the king handed him over to be punished until he paid everything he owed. Jesus ended by saying that this is how God will deal with those who refuse to forgive from the heart. Mercy received must become mercy given. When Jesus finished teaching in Galilee, he traveled to the region of Judea on the other side of the Jordan River. Large crowds followed him there, and he healed the people who came to him. Some Pharisees approached him with a question meant to trap him. They asked whether a man was allowed to divorce his wife for any reason at all. Jesus reminded them of how God created humanity in the beginning, male and female, and how God intended marriage to join 2 people into one united life. He said that what God joins together shouldn't be torn apart by human decisions. The Pharisees pushed back, asking why Moses allowed people to write a certificate of divorce. Jesus explained that Moses permitted it because people's hearts were hard, but that wasn't God's original design. He said that breaking a marriage covenant and marrying someone else was a serious matter unless the marriage had already been broken by unfaithfulness. Hearing this, the disciples said that if marriage was that serious, maybe it was better not to marry at all. Jesus told them that not everyone could accept that idea. Some people choose not to marry for the sake of God's kingdom, and others simply aren't called to marriage, but each person should follow the path God gives them. Then people brought their children to Jesus so he could bless them, but the disciples tried to send them away. Jesus stopped them and said that children should be welcomed because the kingdom of heaven belongs to people with hearts like theirs. He placed his hands on the children and blessed them before moving on. A young man came to Jesus and asked what good thing he needed to do to have eternal life. Jesus told him that only God is truly good, but if he wanted to enter life, he should keep God's commandments. The young man asked which ones, and Jesus listed several about honoring others, avoiding harm, and loving your neighbor. The young man said he had kept all of these since he was young and asked what he was still missing. Jesus told him that if he truly wanted to be complete, he should sell what he had, give the money to the poor, and follow him. The young man walked away sad because he had many possessions and couldn't let them go. Jesus turned to his disciples and said that it's very hard for someone who is attached to wealth to enter God's kingdom. He used a vivid picture, saying it was easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich person to enter the kingdom. The disciples were shocked and asked who could possibly be saved. Jesus told them that what seems impossible for people is possible with God. Peter then spoke up and reminded Jesus that they had left everything to follow him. He asked what would happen to them. Jesus told them that when everything is renewed and the Son of Man sits on his glorious throne, they who had followed him would also sit on thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. He said that anyone who had given up homes, family, or possessions for his sake would receive far more in return and inherit eternal life. He ended by saying that many who seem first now will be last, and many who seem last now will be first. Jesus said that the kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who went out early in the morning to hire workers for his vineyard. He agreed to pay them a fair day's wage and sent them to work. A few hours later, he went out again and saw more people standing around with nothing to do, so he hired them as well. He did the same at midday and again in the afternoon. Even near the end of the day, he found others still waiting for work and sent them into the vineyard too. When evening came, the owner told his manager to call the workers and pay them, starting with the ones who had been hired last. Those who worked only an hour received a full day's wage. When the workers who had been there since morning saw this, they expected to receive more. But when they were paid the same amount, they complained. They said it wasn't fair that those who worked only a short time got the same pay as those who had worked through the heat of the day. The owner reminded them that he had paid them exactly what he promised. He told them he had the right to be generous with his own money and asked why they were angry about his kindness. Jesus ended the story by saying that many who seem first now will be last, and many who seem last now will be first. As Jesus was heading toward Jerusalem, he took the 12 disciples aside and told them plainly what was about to happen. He said that he would be handed over to the religious leaders, condemned to death, turned over to the Gentiles, mocked, beaten, and crucified, but on the third day he would rise again. Soon after, the mother of James and John came to Jesus with her sons. She knelt before him and asked for a favor. She wanted her sons to sit in places of honor beside him in his kingdom, one on his right and one on his left. Jesus told her that she didn't understand what she was asking. He asked the 2 brothers if they were able to drink the same cup of suffering he was about to drink. They said they were. Jesus told them they would indeed share in his suffering, but the places of honor were not his to give. Those positions belonged to the ones the Father had prepared. When the other 10 disciples heard about this request, they were upset. Jesus called them together and explained that in the world, rulers use their power to control people, but his kingdom works differently. He said that whoever wanted to be great must become a servant, and whoever wanted to be first must be willing to put others before themselves. He reminded them that he himself didn't come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. As Jesus and his followers were leaving Jericho, 2 blind men were sitting by the roadside. When they heard that Jesus was passing by, they shouted for him to have mercy on them. The crowd tried to silence them, but they only called out louder. Jesus stopped, called them over, and asked what they wanted him to do. They said they wanted their sight. Jesus was moved with compassion, touched their eyes, and immediately they could see. They got up and followed him. Thanks for listening. Today we learned so many amazing things from Matthew 18, 19, and 20, how Jesus cares for children, how he teaches us to forgive, how he welcomes families, and how God's kindness is bigger than anything we can imagine. These stories remind us that every day is a chance to follow Jesus with a brave, loving heart. As you go on with your day, remember, Jesus sees you, he loves you, and he's always happy when you come close to him. Keep learning, keep growing, and keep shining his light wherever you go. If you'd like more Bible stories made just for kids, you can come back anytime. I'll be right here ready to read with you again.